Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the co-founder of Rent Hero. This is going to be a presentation regarding how you can ensure to get the most of your deposit back, and also scenarios where we will call it an instant win, where you can simply get back your full deposit due to technicalities. So now you've signed your rental agreement, you've gotten the keys, and you've moved into your apartment. And the first thing is, if you have a professional landlord, meaning if your landlord rents out more than one property, there will be a move-in inspection along with a move-in report documenting the condition of the apartment when you took it over. And the next step will be that you have 14 days to send any faults or any damages you find to your landlord. Here can be a good idea to make sure that if the move-in report stated that the walls were newly painted and the floors was newly sanded, and then you find marks on the wall or marks on the floors, then take pictures of this and send it to your landlord. It would also be a good idea to just go over each room, take a wide-angle photo, and then take a picture of each damage or fault you find. Gather it all into a file along with the list of any faults you have. Send that to your landlord and make sure you write that you agree that this is the condition of the apartment at the move-in. This will help you later on when you move out of the apartment. As part of the rental agreement, it has to be decided who has the internal maintenance. In most cases, this will be put upon the tenant. So what does internal maintenance mean? Well, it's precisely what it sounds like. You have to maintain the apartment. And throughout your stay, once you hand over the apartment, then anything that needs to be maintained which hasn't been maintained, is at your cost. So an example of this could be, let's say you hang a picture in a room, and when you move out, there's a difference between the color between the wall behind the picture and the rest of it. That would be a clearly situation where maintenance is needed, and then you'd be liable to pay for the painting. But when we go down to shorter term tenancies, then it becomes a bit more blurry. I think in a situation, let's say that the tenant didn't have the internal maintenance, but the landlord had the internal maintenance. Would it then be reasonable to say, well, after 6 months of stay, then you contact the landlord and say, well, I think maintenance is needed. We need to paint the walls and sand the floors. The answer is probably not. It wouldn't be something the landlord would obligate to. And this is where we are moving around in this area where it becomes very difficult to say something precise. But for short-term tenancies, we don't tend to see that the landlord can have the tenant pay for these full refurbishments where, many layers of painting and oiling of the floors and everything, because it's simply the internal maintenance duty hasn't been activated for the tenant. But it is always very difficult, as it has to do with how you treated the apartment. If there's anything, if you haven't taken care of it, then obviously you need to pay. But landlords tend to think of it as an automatic thing where whenever you move out, you need to paint and sand, but that's not how the law works. And if you are in a situation where you're about to move out, then you can always contact us and we'd be happy to give our advice to that situation. So now you've given your notice and you're about to move out of the apartment. One of the major things you should be aware of is that you're not liable for any refurbishments, which brings the apartment in better condition than when you moved in. And this rule is set because, let's say I was a shady landlord and I had 10 very old apartments. I rent them out and then just charge the tenants for painting and sanding. That wouldn't be very fair. So as a rule of thumb, that's kind of where, those are refurbishment you're not liable for. If the floors weren't sanded, if the walls weren't painted when you moved in, then you don't need to pay for that. But basically what happens is that there will be a move-out report needs to get made. And there's two different rules depending on if you're dealing with a private landlord, meaning that they have one apartment, or a professional landlord who rents out more than one apartment. For professional landlords, they need to invite you to a move-out inspection, and that needs to be given with a 7 days notice. Then you go through the move-out inspection, you document the condition of the apartment at the move-out, and then you're asked to sign this document. And my best advice is that you don't sign this document. It has no real consequence as if you don't sign it, and only puts you in a better position if you want to dispute the claim, or if you're met with this very large refurbishment claim. And it doesn't change the period of time they need to transfer back the remainder of your deposit, which some people are worried about. So don't sign the move out report. Then you have a situation where you're dealing with a private landlord, and they don't actually need to invite you to a move out inspection, but they do need to provide you with a move out report within 14 days of moving out. And this means moving out means handover of keys. If they fail to send that within those 14 days, then they have no claim towards refurbishment on your account and should transfer back the full deposit to you. So there are some scenarios which we would consider an instant win scenario, where there are these technicalities which makes it very difficult for the landlord to win a case regarding having you pay any refurbishment. As we mentioned, the 14 days of providing the move out report is the one we see the most common, is that landlords tend to forget it. Or if you don't sign it, let's say you have a professional landlord and you don't choose to sign the move out report, and then, because of bureaucracy, someone forgets to send it, then they also have no claim towards refurbishment. Why the signatures is always a good idea not to sign it, as it leaves a lot of doors open for scenarios to get back your deposit. Then there are also situations where you're dealing with a professional landlord who hasn't provided you with a move-in report. The same goes, as it's very hard for them to document the condition of the apartment when you moved in, and that you're not paying for refurbishments, which brings the apartment in better condition than when you moved in. So that move-in report is also very important. Then you have situations where, let's say you're dealing with a professional landlord and they forget to invite you to the move-out inspection, and then they just send it to you. Then even though they send it within those 14 days, then they haven't invited you with proper notice to join the move-out inspection, which also means that they have no claim towards refurbishment. And then we're seeing these bit of edge cases, is that in Denmark we have these rental templates that you are to use, and it's called like an A9. You can look at the first page on the upper right corner. And if your apartment is entered into after the 1st of July 2015, and they've used the previous contract, which was an A8, that actually means that the internal maintenance can't be put upon the tenant but falls upon the landlord. And that also means that the amount of refurbishments you're actually liable to pay for is also drastically reduced. So these are the scenarios where if this happens to you, then you probably have a pretty good case of getting back your deposit. So that was a summary of a lot of information regarding the move out. It's always difficult. This is kind of a simplistic overview, but if you have any questions or anything and would like us to take a closer look at your case, then get in touch with us, and we tend to be pretty quick at replying and giving a free evaluation. That's it for me. Have a nice day. Bye.